Kasim with the Daily Google News, and I'm excited because I've got another member of our team joining us. Jeremy, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on. Super excited to be here and talking with you.
Yeah. So, Jeremy, you came from our YouTube channel, didn't you? That's how you, or was it a podcast?
It was one or the other. I can't remember which one. Maybe if we had some like analytics tracking me, like when I first did, then I'd have a better answer. But it was either the podcast or the YouTube channel. But it was definitely one or the other.
Yeah. And then we became buddies. We were talking about a couple of things, and over time, you were like, dude, we gotta do something. So I'm glad you're on the team.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be part of the team.
Yeah. So you had, I think, some really great context. You're a serial entrepreneur, super successful. And I'm going to say some words that I hope don't offend you, but it sounds like a really adept salesperson.
Yeah.
Because salesperson is a dirty word in some industries, but for me, that's like, it's the hardest role to fill. It's the most valuable person that you can have in a company, especially a small company. And most people freaking suck at it.
Exactly. And there's different kind of salespeople, right? It's not like a used car salesman. It's sales providing a service that people want or they need, right? So I think there's kind of a difference between, somebody like pushing a shady product versus somebody that's actually selling something that's going to benefit and give more value than what they're giving to you in return.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've got a friend, her name's Rachel Miller. I just did a perpetual traffic interview with her. World authority in social media, brilliant person. And she said, when you find what it is that somebody really needs, you're no longer selling, you're serving. And I really liked that. And I feel like we do that here. We've got two salespeople with each of them with their own assistant, John and Mike. And, so many times it's like, hey, we're probably not the right fit, but here's what you could do. So I always want to make sure we leave people better off than we found them. I have found within our client base, though, and hopefully none of them are watching, that generally speaking, sales is not the emphasis. And I think you mentioned to me that you're like, all right, just chop it into solutions 8. And I'm seeing some people saying like, oh, we're not getting enough leads. And then you go in and realize, well, you haven't answered 70% of your phone calls. So I think that's a great topic. It's a good thing for us to dig in. I'd love to know from your experience and expertise, ideal sales process, ideal follow-up process. So what do they look like in terms of the nuts and bolts? But then more importantly, how do you deploy them so that they're manageable and executable? Because here's the thing: is everybody who's watching this is probably rolling their eyes just a little bit, like, oh no, I know I need to follow up. Fine. Well, let's it's just like fitness. It's like, I know I need to work out. Fine. Let's make it easy. Like, there's got to be the, what's the Beachbody program that we can hand somebody where it's like, you just plug in this video and do exactly what we tell you to do, and then we're going to get you successful.
Yeah. So the way I look at that is it's really easy to say, yeah, I know, like, this is common sense stuff. So there's kind of two different people that we could be talking to, right? We could be talking to solopreneurs. So a little background, I own some gyms, some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms. And when I first started, it was just me. And if I didn't make sales, then I wouldn't be able to pay my rent. I wouldn't be able to feed my son. I wouldn't be able to feed myself. So I was super highly motivated to follow up with leads and to call them back and to get them in and to get them to sign up in my gym. But once you start getting enough members in to where you can start hiring other people, those people might not have the same motivation that you do, because depending on the way that they're getting paid, whether it's performance-based pay, commission only, okay, then maybe they will. But the way I've always paid my people was commissions, yes, but I also gave them a base pay, which, they're going to be comfortable with no matter what. So
can I just pause you there for just a minute? Because this is already a good conversation. Hiring a salesperson is the hardest role I've ever had to fill. And I have 2 salespeople on staff. One of them, I had to go out and get a recruiter for. And dude, the recruiters are expensive. Like, it was a healthy 5-figure sum to hire this guy. And then the other one, I fell into my lap. Like, just a blessing. Why am I telling you this? What I've been told by folks that were helping me is part of what I was failing at in the very beginning is when I give a base salary, it satiates the salesperson to a point to where they're not going to perform. And I don't know if I agree or believe this, but I'm taking advice from other people that are really strong, adept sales folks. They say that the best salesperson is a hungry salesperson. So you counter that a little bit, which I'm fine with. But if you give somebody a base pay and they're in a performance-based job. Like, talk me and all the other entrepreneurs that are watching into why we would need to do that.
Oh, well, I'm not saying that the way I did it is right. And as a matter
Yeah.
of fact, I've had a lot of turnover in that department because of that, because of them just not following up and calling back. Now, I read a really good book. It's called The Great Game of Business, and then there was another book called Get in the Game, and it's really about open book management, all that stuff. Not really, going to get too much in the weeds. There going to be a long conversation, but um, one thing that really stood out to me in that book, and this is something that I started implementing recently, is sitting down and having goal setting sessions with the salespeople, and not necessarily goal setting is like, oh, how much commission do you want to make this week, but short term, kind of midterm and long term life goals. Like, what do you want? Okay. And then, okay, so what do you need to get there? And how can we help you get there? Right. Because
Mm.
if they can help us become successful and we can help them become successful. And if you just tie it to a monetary goal only, I don't know if that's enough motivation, but if you can tie it to something bigger and you can tie a bigger goal and you can keep that goal in front of them and show them how that, by working in your company, by working in your sales department and helping you achieve your goals, we can help them achieve their goals. I think that can maybe bring a different motivation instead of just like, okay, pick up the phone, dial, dial, dial. Yeah, you have to do that, or you have to answer the calls and you have to follow up. You have to do that, but not just to knock out a certain amount of numbers per week, right? We're tying it, back to, and you can almost look at it the same way we look at marketing, right? If we want to have like X amount of leads, okay, how many impressions do we have to get? How many clicks do we have to get per impression, right? And so we can tie these like analytics to a bigger goal and a bigger like life goal for the person. If we can keep that in mind and keep that in front of them on why they're doing it and why they're here, and then how if they help the overall company grow, how they're going to be able to grow too. I think that's going to kind of help them succeed and help the company succeed because they're actually going to want to do it. Does that make
Gotcha.
sense?
No, it's brilliantly stated. So you said a couple of things there that I want to unpack. I love the analogy to paid advertising. Just I had a business partner for a long time in our real estate investment agency. Really brilliant guy, best salesperson ever knew. And he said we can't control our outcomes. We can only control our activity.
Yep.
And he'd say that over and over and over and over and over again. And it never really resonated with me because I'm not a sales guy, and I zoom out and I think differently, but after a while I was like, man, he's so right. And his whole thing was, I know for a fact if I make 20 phone calls, I'm going to book one appointment. I know for a fact if I book 20 appointments, I'm going to get one client. I know for a fact that if I get, 5 clients, I'm going to keep one long term. And now that I know those things for a fact, all I have to do is go all the way here to the very beginning and say, okay, well, I have to make 500 phone calls or whatever it is, and I'm going to have the number of clients that we need for this month or this quarter, this whatever. And I never really looked at sales that way. I looked at sales a little, there was a mystery to it. It was kind of magic. But he showed me in the real estate space, and I think the same is true with their agency space, because we've developed similar numbers, that it's so consistent. Like, if you just manage your activity, I know I'm going to follow up 9 times. And there's data around that too. I remember Infusionsoft publishing the study saying it took 8 follow-up emails before somebody's ready to convert from the Infusionsoft system or ecosystem. Google is now saying 500 touches, but whatever it is, dude, 500, 5 million, 5 billion, 5. Like, knowing what the number is now just makes it now it's just a march. And it's like, all right, we're just going to run for as long as we need you to make this work.
Yep. Exactly. And it's the same thing. And not to go off on a tangent here, but it's the same thing I would tell like some of my students, right, in jujitsu. They want to compete and you want to set a goal. Like, obviously everybody's goal is to win, right? So it's like, okay, hey, I want to go win 3 tournaments this year. And that you can't control whether you win, but you
Right.
can control the process. Okay, so what would that look like? Okay, does that mean you're showing up to class 5 times a week? Are you training an extra hour a day? Are you adding an extra cardio? You can control the process. You can't control the outcome. You can control the process, and by controlling the process, the outcome will naturally come, whatever that is. Right? We can't say for sure. Like, is everything like, is 8 calls going to always convert? No, we can get averages, we can get ideas, but we can always tie it back to that process. And that process is what's going to get us there. And I think just keeping people focused on the process and not so focused on the end result will come as a byproduct of the process.
So, dude, here's a gold nugget for anybody watching. And honestly, for me too, now that I'm thinking about it, Right at the moment, we're managing our salespeople based off of output. Like, how many clients have you closed? What's the revenue? But if you really want to get good at coaching your salespeople, go figure out what the things are that they can control. Because our sales guys can't control revenue. Period. They can't control what a client's willing to spend. Period. But they can control how many calls they made, how many emails they made, how many follow-ups they made, how many outbound calls versus follow-up call. If you're struggling with sales, go figure out what the levers are that you can pull. And I don't think I bet 99% of businesses don't do that. It's just looking at like how many people closed, how many people came in the door. I got a lead, what happened? But there's a bunch of things that happen along the way. So go identify what those inflection points are, and then work on managing them. And you now know, oh, if I pull this lever, then this increases proportionately.
Exactly. And there's other ways to follow up too, right? We kind of touch, some automated ways through email, through SMS,
Yeah, let's talk
texting,
about
through
that.
different
So
things like that.
you're a high level fan, right?
So I've been watching a little bit more now that, like that you mentioned of it. So in my jujitsu schools, I don't know if I should mention like competitor stuff. I can know we use like high level. I use it's called Active Campaign. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
So
I got
use
a buddy,
Active
Steve
Campaign.
Berry. Shout out to Steve Berry, World Authority and Active Campaign. I just like to drop his name because he's a good dude. But yeah, I'm a fan. It's not a bad software at all.
Yeah. So that's just what I've used, and it kind of makes things like super simple. And I mean everything is really going to be tied to the individual company or the individual person. Being that I'm a sole owner of my school, it's easy for me to tie in email automations that are like story based, and I can touch on a little more emotional level, talking about my journey coming through the things. But it's, if you go in and you fill out the form on my website, you're going to get automated emails just every day, every single day. It's going to automate an alert to me. It's going to automate an alert to the salespeople to say, hey, we have a new lead. That lead goes into a Google sheet, and then we just track follow-ups. How many times did follow up? Did they join? Did they not join? And then also, if they didn't join, why did they not join? And if they did join, and I forget who I got this from, but this was not something that I made up. But if they did join, you want to ask them, was there anything that almost made you not join? And if so, what was it?
Oh, dude, I
Because
love that.
if we can start overcoming objections through our follow-ups, through our email follow-ups, through our SMS follow-ups, that can kind of help. And even if it's a 1 or 2% conversion rate compounded over time, that can equal a lot,
Yeah. No, that's huge. That's a good value bomb too. So right after you earn a customer is the time to ask them, hey, what were the things that, almost lost you for me?
Exactly. And you can either do that in person, you can do that via an onboarding process through email, or you can do it both. You can have some kind of document, and then you look over that, and then you can have a weekly or a monthly meeting and just say, okay, hey, what are these objections that we're seeing for people who are not joining our company? And what are the objections that came up, even though the people did join, but maybe made it a little hesitant for them? And then that way you can kind of improve and make these little improvements through time. And like I said, it'll just compound. And through time, you'll improve all your processes.
Yeah, you can't manage it unless you measure it. I like that you're emailing everybody once a day. I think that's, especially for your business type, I think that that's critical. And a lot of folks are scared to do that. I think just about everybody should be emailing at least once a week.
Yeah.
At an absolute minimum. And for new prospects, I don't think daily is too aggressive because they're interested as long as you have something to say. And you mentioned emotion, story. Dude, I would love, if you're watching this and you disagree with what I'm about to say, please challenge me in the comments. Find me an industry where that's not applicable. I don't care if you're B2B, super high shelf, ivory tower, C-level, Ivy League school. I don't care. I've seen the email sequences where it was like, at Accenture, we have chosen to, and I mean, just there's nothing about that I'm ever, because everybody's, we're all humans. So, it doesn't matter that they're in a 3-piece suit behind their desk. Like, it's emotion that emotion equals motion. It's emotion that moves people. And your email should be engaging and they should be captivating. And I'm one of our clients was a massive real estate brokerage, like, $1 trillion in assets and whatever. And the emails they were sending were so god awful. They were abysmal, and their open rates were horrible. Their
And people
click-through
probably
rate
look
was
at them and just
horrible.
immediately delete them.
Oh, dude, that's what I kept telling the gentleman that was running the division that we were only sending emails for the Southwest, but I was just like, man, you're throwing away these opportunities, and if you think about them specifically, like the amount of content that they had access to just through case studies, the amount of money people were making from what it was that they were providing was, I mean, like they had so much fodder there and they just dismissed it. So I like what Ryan Dice says. He goes, there's no B2B, there's no B2C, there's just human to human. And
Exactly.
the only way to construct, I think, the only way to talk to people is like they're people. Because the minute you try to lift yourself out of that mind frame or mindset, I think you're going to put yourself at a massive disadvantage.
And it just sounds robotic, and nobody wants to talk to some robotic corporate. Like, it just doesn't make sense. A good reference for anybody, and I have no tie to this, no affiliate. It's just one of the courses that I went through is a guy named Andre Chaperone. He used to call it autoresponder madness. It's called The Art of Email now. Literally breaks things down into like, and this might be beyond the scope of this discussion, but like leaving cliffhangers, like he calls them soap opera sequences, like kind of how Netflix builds this anticipation. And so like literally I would read and he would have long emails and I would read every single one of them. And his emails leave these cliffhangers that like you're excited to get the next email. And it's literally like, it's just tied into stories, and it can be something so random just about his life, but then it all ties back into his course. And I've literally bought everything that the guy sold.
Yeah. No, I've got the thought that you remember Jeff Walker's product launch formula. You ever paid for that? Yeah. So Jeff would do stuff like that too. Probably not quite as well. Like I wasn't on the edge of my seat, but it was good enough to where I was like, all right, you've hooked me. I'm definitely opening up tomorrow. And it was funny just how consistent it was too. Like you knew the formula without him showing you the formula. You knew exactly what he's doing, but you didn't hate him for it. It was like, good on you, man. You caught my attention and you kept it.
Yeah.
So I think people are afraid. I think they're afraid, like, oh, I don't want to piss off my client, or I don't want to, tick off my prospect. We all get it. Everybody's out to, market, make money, as long as you're doing so ethically in a transparent way. I think people kind of get a kick out of it. I get a kick out of good marketing.
Yeah. No, like
I like getting got. I get a kick out of it.
No, I get it. Like I'm the same way. And like you said, humans are humans, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether you're marketing to a, Fortune 500 company. There's always a human being behind that, reading that email, looking at that ad. There's always a person, right? And if you can excite that person, maybe they're not the decision maker, but they can go to the decision maker because they're excited, they're emotionally invested in this. And if they're emotionally invested in their company succeeding, and you can provide a good product or a good service to them, then you have to touch a person on an emotional level to get them excited about it, whether they're a decision maker or not. If they're working within a company or if they're whatever, like they have the ability to bring that to somebody who is a decision maker.
How many emails are in your sequence? If you're emailing somebody every day, when do you run out?
So the first follow-up is a 9 email series. So that's automated, but during that automation, they don't get any newsletters. They don't get any broadcast emails. They're kind of put into this automation. Once that automation ends, they're tagged that the automation ended, and then they're put into another sequence. Now, within those 9 days, I generally try to already have them in and signed up. Generally, we have a kind of a short period. Generally, they fill out the form. They want to do a free class. Within that week, they usually come in.
Yeah, so I got a buddy who does marketing for CrossFit gyms, and he told me, and he's done hundreds around the country, 2 comma club winner 15 times or whatever. He said, if I don't get him within 2 weeks, I don't get him.
Yeah.
Or if I don't get him within 2 weeks, I don't get him until the next whatever it is. So it's interesting that, and I think everybody needs to know that too. What's your sales cycle? When strike when the iron's hot.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like following up immediately, because if you don't, your competitors will.
Oh,
right? Or though, if they call you and you don't answer the phone, especially if they call, because if they call, they're in a hurry, they want something. Right. And you don't answer the phone, then they're just going to call the next person in line.
Dude, I can't tell you how many, and you know this now, I can't tell you how many clients we have where I get the phone call or the email like, oh, hey, Kasim, I really appreciate everything y'all done, but we need to cancel. The leads just aren't there. And I'm like, totally understood. Give me just a second. And then I go straight to call tracking metrics, and then I hit play. And it's just one after the other after the other. One of our largest clients, they hired us for an influx in leads. We start managing their account. We begin tracking and recording phone calls, which no other agency does. I know of one other agency in the continental United States that does this. We're tracking, recording their phone calls. I get a phone call from the CFO. Got to pull the plug. Nobody's happy. 30% of their calls are going unanswered. And the calls that are getting answered, Jeremy, it was nuts. Answer the call, hold please, hold for 5 minutes. Answer the call, transfer the wrong department. And somebody got fired over there because they're doing really well now. But you could just, and the guy was, he's a little embarrassed to have had that conversation. He goes, okay, thank you for this. Enough said. And now they're one of our best clients. And
that's what people don't realize. It's not a lead generation problem. It's a bottleneck at the sales department.
Yeah.
But if you're not monitoring that, then
everybody puts the least qualified person on the phone. It's the least qualified, least paid, most jaded, least happy human at every business is the one that you're like, all right, you sit here at the front desk. If somebody walks in through the door, you handle them. And by the way, on the off chance that the phone rings, and so you're on the phone with whatever, like 17-year-old intern that wants to text her boyfriend, or like, there's the grizzled old lady that just has to deal with everybody's bullshit. Now she's the poor person and dude, I don't even feel bad for either of those people. It's like, that shouldn't be your first line of defense. I realized, like, hey, having somebody who answers the phone with a smile, that might be expensive, but God, try the alternative. Yeah. There's nothing worse than calling a company, being excited about a product or service, and then getting somebody on the other end of the phone that doesn't want to talk to you. It's horrible.
Yeah. I mean, it's an immediate mood killer. You're like, and maybe I'll talk to someone else.
Even if the person they transfer me to is cool, like, I mean, we've all done it where you call and it's like, hello or whatever. And then they get you on the phone with the salesperson. I'm like, okay, I see what's going on now. Now, that I have money to give you and you're going to be, kind, nice, polite, accessible, whatever. I'm not an affiliate with these folks, but we pay a company called Ruby, and they're super expensive for call answering. Like, you can go, there's companies out there like Answer First or Answer One or whatever. I don't like them, by the way. I don't think they're very good. I think their service is poor, but they're a tenth the cost. I think I pay Call Ruby right now $500 a month, where Answer One would be like $100 a month. So we'll say a fifth the cost, but the folks at Ruby get a living wage. So like, they pay really well, especially for the industry. They don't make them work crazy nights and weekends or holidays. So like, my phones don't get answered at Christmas, which is fine because they shouldn't be. Yeah. They're in Portland, Oregon, which, if you've ever been up to Portland, like, everybody's higher in hell, but they're all happy.
I actually lived there for a brief moment.
Did you really, dude?
Yeah.
Portland tripped me out. Like, when I went to Portland, I was like, okay, I am not in Kansas anymore. This place is nuts. But what's cool is when you call Solutions 8, you get somebody that, for the most part, really feels engaged. And then they do hot transfers, they take messages, they schedule appointments. And if I ever hear a bad answer, I just email Ruby and I'm like, hey, I never want that person answering my call again. And they're super good at iterating. And, you think $500 to have somebody answer my phone, and that's the charges per minute too. So the more volume we get, the more money I'm going to spend. But that's a good expense. It's a valuable expense for me because I know that at least at a minimum, I'm not losing, we have a $250 to $500 cost per lead. So that's a $500 mistake somebody's about to make if I don't have a happy, healthy person answering that.
So it's really an investment. It's not a cost.
$1,000,000,000%. Yeah.
Same thing with marketing. That's a lot of people don't like, unless they've been marketing or they've been in business for a long time. They sometimes look at it as an expense,
right?
Where it's not. It's an investment. It's like you put $1 in, you get $2 out.
Yeah, that's what's funny whenever there's like a downturn or economic turmoil or someone's having a rough time. They're like, oh, we have to turn off the advertising, and I'm like, that's smart.
That's like the last thing you want to turn off.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay to fire the agency, if you're like, hey, I can let this run without you guys watching it for a couple of months and probably be okay. Like, all right, maybe that's true depending on your industry, your account or whatever, but definitely don't hit the pause button because you're going to turn off the tap.
Exactly.
Let's go back to nurture. Emails, 9 days, one a day for 9 days, and then subsequent sequence. You use SMS?
We do. But not in an automated fashion. I usually use SMS when I don't get a response from a call or an email. I find that almost everybody, if they're going to respond, almost everybody responds to a text. And I don't know if it's because they're busy, they don't want to answer the phone, or maybe they think it's a solicitor calling them. They don't know who it is. They don't recognize the phone number. I feel like texting is super important. And sometimes we will literally like, I'll have like one of the sales guys literally just text from the phone, like, hey, this is XYZ. And I was just following up because you filled out a form on our website. And then it's funny, we'll almost immediately get a response like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
So I think text is super important in your follow-up series, whether you do that manually or whether you do that automated, just depending on the size of your team and the amount of leads that you have coming in. I think that text is super important.
Yeah. Well, SMS has like a 99% open rate.
Yeah.
If you get a text, they're definitely gonna look at it. Whether or not they take action is a whole other story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
and
mean, and
it's
if you
so
can do it,
key.
like I said, we from my personal experience, as far as texting goes, if you can have a real person, a real salesperson reach out and just text and say, hey, I just gave you a call. Give me a call when you get a chance. This is XYZ from whatever company. I'm following up because you filled out this form or you had this question, and just letting them know who you are. I feel like we've had a really good response off of that.
That's great. So that's a good pro tip. I like the fact that you'd follow up right after the phone call too. I think is really sharp because it's
Yeah.
phone call, text message, and then you know what? This has actually happened to me before. Saw the phone call come in, didn't answer it because I don't answer any phone calls. Got a text follow up right afterwards and thought like, oh gosh, those folks. Yeah, I want to talk to them. Didn't respond to the text, but the next time the phone rang, I knew who it was.
Yep.
And then I answered it. So it's just a nice little way to buttress it. I think it also protects you legally because if you're sending batch text from a software, there's a bunch of compliance requirements.
Yep.
If somebody's sending text on their personal phone, even if they're doing it with a company, that's a person sending a text to another person, and you don't have nearly as many hoops to jump through, I'd imagine.
Yeah. And it's maybe it takes an extra minute or two,
Yeah.
but it's literally been like the one thing that really like it's been like a night and day like difference whenever we're doing our follow-up, getting a response from a lead or even a current customer. Like if you have a question from them, again, just following up saying like, hey, we noticed your payment didn't go through. I mean, again, every business is different depending on, how much of a personal touch you have it. With gyms, it's a little bit easier because you see these people every day, and it just depends on like the comfort. Like I know that my students or my members would be comfortable with me or my staff texting them. So again, like every business is a little bit different, but
I feel like it's so much more appropriate now. Like 3-4 years ago, text was kind of intimate.
yeah.
Like if somebody texts you, was like, I
Like,
don't
who are
know
you
you like
texting me?
that. Like, yeah.
It's
But now I just, it might have been COVID that sort of, because it made so many things more accessible. But
COVID and the different chat apps. I mean, it's almost like a text
there you
message,
go.
right?
Hey, that's a good point too. It's like everybody's using like WhatsApp, Telegram, so it just kind of rolls into everything else.
It's almost
But
hard to tell the difference.
yeah. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'd love to, and I know that there have been attempts at this, but I'd love to just consolidate all my messaging into one thing because I'm so sick of having to manage like, Messenger, Telegram, WhatsApp,
I literally
text.
just deleted Telegram. I'm like, do I need this? And I have some stuff. I'm like, I'm just deleting it
I can't
because my
delete
phone is like a
Telegram.
mess. I'm like,
Yeah, no, I'm in a mastermind called Front Row Dads, and I'm obsessed with it. Shout out to Front Row Dads, by the way. And everybody's on Telegram, so I can't get out of it.
yes, and that's the thing. Like you'll be tied to certain things on certain apps, but
Yeah, yeah. It's just my wife that keeps me in WhatsApp. If I was married, I wouldn't be in WhatsApp. Yeah. So cool. How often are you calling in that 9-day block?
every other day. So
Okay.
we'll call every other day. I won't do every day. I'll do every other day. But immediately after the first call, we'll automatically text them.
Are you
And
texting after every call or just after that first call?
after that first call, every other day, then we'll call again. They don't answer. Then we'll follow up with a text again, like say the next day, and then call again. And then we'll we'll go like a week or 2 weeks out. But generally, if we follow up immediately after getting the lead, we have a pretty good response rate, right? Because if people are filling out a form on your website, they want to hear from you. They're interested in you. And I can't tell you how many people, like going back to asking that question at the end, I always ask people, hey, how did you hear about us? And because we actually have a pretty competitive market over here. There's a lot of jujitsu schools around me. And I always ask them like, what made you choose us? And I can't tell you how many responses of, oh, you're the only one that got back to me, or you're the fastest to follow up. And literally I've heard that like several times from several people, and people want to be followed up with, right? Especially if they fill out, like people are impatient, right? If I
Yeah.
want something, if I want like some kind of service, I'm like, all right, I want it now. Like I want to talk to somebody.
Yeah. Well, and in the Google sphere too, Performance Max is changing this a lot. But the way that I've always thought about it is the 4-pack. You search for something, there's 4 ads. And I do this. I open all 4 in a new tab, and then I call the first one. If they don't answer, I call the second one. If they don't answer, I call the third one. If they answer, you're my new landscaper, dude. Like,
Yep.
congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speed to lead. I used to have this data point memorized because I used it for the real estate investment agency for so long. But there was a 20-year study. I think it was MIT. That might not be right, but there was a 20-year study on capturing leads via phone calls. And what they found was that if you get back to a lead within 60 seconds, you're 1,000 times more likely to qualify that lead. And then at 5 minutes, it dropped, in half. And then at an hour, it was, effectively non-existent. It was like just crazy, staggering, almost unbelievable. And you tell that to people and they're like, oh, well, that's not possible. And I'm like, all right, maybe it's not for you, but I've seen organizations pull it off. I've
Yep.
only got 2 salespeople on staff. We generally get back to leads within 5 minutes. That's
Yeah.
pretty damn good.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I don't even know if we do 5 minutes
Yeah.
unless it like comes right in like during like the work hours or whatever. But having that follow-up series, and then not to get too far off, but also having reactivation sequences when people cancel, right? So figuring out why they can. Now, if somebody move, like for a local business, if you're a local business and somebody moves out of the area, okay, you're probably not getting them back because they can't come in your business. But if you're, say, a gym, or you're a yoga studio, or you're something that you're not like a one-time use, right? So let's say you're a divorce attorney. Hopefully you're only a one-time use person for that person, and then they're not coming back, right? So you're probably not going to reactivate that person unless, if they get remarried, and then, but hopefully it doesn't happen.
You'll know who your frequent flyers are. It's like, Josh doesn't treat people very well. He's probably coming back. Put him back through the sequence.
Put him on like a membership program, like once every 5 years.
You do 4, we'll do the 5th one free.
But for like other businesses, right?
Yeah.
Like different service-based businesses, like following up with people who aren't using your service, maybe not like right off the bat like you would a typical lead, but maybe you could set up an automation where it says, hey, 3 months after they cancel, follow up and say, hey, I know you haven't been in a while. Just wanted to see if we could do anything to get you back, and following up with them like that. Like you might get 1 out of 10, but that's still something at the end of the year,
Well, it's still something for what's effectively free marketing, man. I mean, the email templates are everywhere.
Yep.
You can't not find the email templates. They're easy to write. There's, they're Mad Libs at this point. So you just fill in the blanks and they're good. Those templates are so good. And so you could have your indoctrination email campaign, your follow-up campaign, your reactivation campaign on a per avatar basis. It would take you a weekend to put all this shit together. And now anytime any one of those actions happens, you go in, tag the prospect, doesn't matter what program you're using. Even the email programs are free. Every time I pull up AppSumo, I see a free email automation. There's no reason not to do this. There's no excuse for it. And the impact is staggering. It's, we talk about the little hinge that swings the big door. This is it. This is it. So if you're watching this and you don't have a follow-up, if you don't have a reactivation, if you don't have an email nurture sequence, like you have to do that right now. Commit to doing it. Go carve out. I mean, how long do you think it would take, Jeremy? Soup to nuts, writing all the emails, automating everything. Even if you had to learn the automated software, how long is this in total hours?
I think if you sat down and carved out a couple hours a day, you could knock it out in a week.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, your first iteration doesn't have to be the final iteration. You can go through and make improvements through time.
Yeah.
But just getting something,
everybody that start badly.
Yeah. Just get it done.
Yeah. Just get it done.
Yeah. And it doesn't, like, you can start off with something super simple. There's a guy named Dean Jackson, and a lot of people use it these days, but it's called a 9-word email. You can use it in text. You can use an email, but it gets such a high response rate because it sounds like you would, like, if you were going to reach out and text me or message me on Slack, and like, if you're doing like the reactivation email 3 months after someone cancels, the subject line could be, hey, and then you could just put, are you interested in coming back and training with us again? ? And then your name.
Are you interested in coming back and training with us?
Like, maybe that's 10 words.
Those 11 words.
But like, it doesn't have to be exactly 9, but it's like, he calls it the 9-word email because it just sounds like something like a friend would send you, or
right,
your buddy would send you. It's not like this like super high, like long, people are going to just delete that.
Yeah.
Right?
Ryan tells a story about Neil Patel sending him an email, and the email starts, hey, asshole, which is already really kind of funny. They say, hey, so what can I help you with? That I forgot how it went. It was something brilliant. It was like, what can I help you with? Or what problem can I solve that like you're sick of, or that you don't want to touch, or that you're like, what's the thing that's on your desk that you're like, dude, if somebody would just take this off for me. And I was like, that's freaking brilliant, you know, and that's industry specific, right? That's
Yeah.
not for a jujitsu gym, let's
Yeah.
say, but it's probably for professional services or a
Yeah.
consultant or a coach, or I mean, hell, that could be a trainer. Yeah, that's the problem. It's so easy, you know, the 9-word email. What a great point. It's just so easy. You have to do this. Do you script your SMS and or phone call scripts? Is that pre-written, or do you just trust your salespeople to say the right thing?
No, I do have a script for inbound phone calls. Um, and it used to be a little different, right? So we used to not like give prices over the phone in case people were price shopping. Now I don't care. Now I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
if you want to know price, like, and I think it's so much better to give the price if somebody wants to know it, because first off, they can't afford it. It doesn't matter how good of a presentation you do, they just can't afford it. Right. But if you give them the price and they show up, as long as you give a good presentation, they're going to join.
Yep.
If it was a money, and 9 times out of 10, if somebody doesn't join, it's a money issue. They just can't afford it. And not everybody can, but if they can afford it and you give a good service. But going back, yeah, we do have it scripted. And the reason why I script it is because I want my salespeople to have control of the conversation and not vice versa, right? There's certain information that we need to collect. There's certain things that we need. Like our goal when you call us is to get you in for an intro, if that's the reason you're calling, right? If it's a student calling, hey, what time is class tonight? You know, okay, like we'll do that, but that's not scripted. But if it's a sales call, it is scripted, right? So for example, if you call me and you're like, hey, Jeremy, I saw your jiu-jitsu school online. How much is it? How much does it cost a month? Well, okay. Hey, great. Can I get your first name? And then now, so it's the first name. Hey, my name's Kasim. Okay, cool. Can I get your last name? Great. Hey, if you don't mind me asking, how'd you hear about us? And then they'll tell you how they heard about us. Okay, great. Have you trained jiu-jitsu before? Yes or no? Okay, no. All right. So have you heard about our free trial program? I saw something online. Okay, great. So what we like to do is we like to bring you in, try out a free class. We have a class tonight at 6, or we have one tomorrow at 7. Which one of those times works best for you? And then we don't ask them like, hey, when can you come in? Because then anybody, oh, like, let me look at my
how's Tuesday?
Oh,
we're actually booked up Tuesday. And it's like, well, why didn't you tell me, asshole?
Yeah. So give them 2 times. And if those times don't work, then we'll figure out a time, right? Say, okay, hey, do you know where we're located? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. Hey, look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 7. If you need anything between now and then, just give us a call. Okay, great. Thanks so much. So we took control of that conversation. We didn't even answer their original question of what the price was. Now, if they're like, oh yeah, hey, by the way, can you give me the price again? Yeah, absolutely. So you come in, of course, your first class is free. If you do like it, it's $160 a month to sign up. With that, you can train as much or as little as you like. Now, we only have one program. Like we charge one price. We don't do like different tiers for different days. And the reason why I say you can train as much or as little as you like is because somebody's like, oh, well, I can only train 2 days. So I don't want the unlimited program. So we don't call it an unlimited program. Objection. Yeah. So we don't call it unlimited because like, oh, well, I can only train 2 days a week. So do you have a 2-day-a-week program? So we say you can train as much or as little as you like. And then the program is $160 a month. However, you know, when you come in, your first class is free. And if you don't like it, there's absolutely zero pressure to sign up.
So those little linguistic nuances are so important. I used to ask people what their ad spend budget was, you know, like, well, what's your ad spend budget? And then they're always like, well, as little as possible to make this work. And that's always, and of course that's the answer. That'd be my answer too, right? It's like, I want to spend, you know, I just got finished and we do negative selling. I'm like, hey, this might not work. 50% of all Google Ads campaigns fail in the first 90 days, blah, 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 blah. It's a test. And then I have to say like, how much do you want to test? And they're like, well, the least amount, which it's always, you know, it just sets them up for a combative response. So what we say now is, what's your threshold for pain when it comes to testing? And what I'm doing is I'm letting them know this sucks. This is hard. But it's a joke. We say it tongue in cheek. I'm like, all right, Jeremy, super excited to get started with you. Let me ask you a question. As far as ad spend, what's your threshold for pain? The more you spend, the faster we're going to get there because the more data I'm going to get. So what's your threshold for pain? And now I've turned it around. It's like you and me are in this together. And we're going to figure out like what's the most amount. And I've acknowledged the fact that this sucks. And it sounds like such a small nuance. It changes the entire temperament of the conversation, all of it. So again, if you're watching this, what are the little semantic gems that you've identified that you can arm your employees, your salespeople, arm them with, because that's what makes you good. It's, you know, you've been doing this for 10, 15 years and you figured out, oh, if I say this differently in this way, you can bottle all of that. It's all bottleable.
Yep. And another thing too, another little thing that's super important is that obviously you got to have a good product, right? But not only have a good product, but the person selling that product has to believe in it. Because if
Yeah.
they don't believe in it, like if I'm selling you something and I'm like say you and I meet for the first time, Cost, I'm like, man, like I feel like I really like this guy, but like what I'm trying to sell is like not the good. You're gonna feel that through that conversation. So, and also if you're having somebody, and this is no knock, I grew up in a really poor background. Like I grew up really poor. But if you have somebody who's not used to seeing a certain amount of money, and then the
They
product that I'm
ask for the
selling is
money.
$50,000 up
Yeah.
front, that's like an astronomical amount of money to get front. Like I'm like gonna feel nervous inside, like asking somebody for $50,000 up front.
Yeah.
And if you've never seen that kind of money before come in just for, like
It
it's
can be a
nothing,
big deal to you.
there can be a disconnect there. And I
Yeah.
think it's really training your people up to realize that, hey, listen, certain things, like certain people, certain companies, they're able to spend this comfortably. And it's not like you're taking from them. They're obviously giving you this because they're going to get a bigger investment or bigger value in return. And
Mhm.
so I think having your salespeople, A, they have to believe in your product. And B, they have to be comfortable for asking for the sale. That's super important. Like you said, you can't just throw, you know, a $10 an hour person on the thing and just say, hey, just start cranking and dialing numbers.
Even with the script, even with
Yeah.
the right script,
Yeah.
there's so much about it, mindset, temperament. I think that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that whole comfort with money thing. I struggle with that personally. When I started my agency, I didn't really think what I was offering was worth anything because it was so easy. It was like all
It's
I'm
easy to
doing.
you.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
that was the
But
problem. It was like, well, gosh, all I'm doing is that. I mean, dude, sometimes I'd end up on the phone with people and I was like, I can probably just do that for you now. And there'd be the nice, kind person who's like, look, I should pay you something. And then there'd be the people that would not only take advantage of you, but then call you again tomorrow to see what else.
like,
Hey. Yeah. So yeah, mature into a position where you realize, no, if I charge you this money, I'm actually doing you a favor. Because if you don't charge somebody enough, and I did this too as a young entrepreneur, I wouldn't charge enough. And I wouldn't realize that on the front end, but I wouldn't charge enough. And then later I'd start to resent the person. And then they wouldn't get the service that they deserved or that they needed because I couldn't afford to provide them with anything over and above just the bare minimum. And it became a bad experience for them and a bad experience for me. So, I have people that will say like, can you afford a discount? Or they ask that question in a way that, hey, can you not? And I'm like, yeah, first of all, I own the company. Second of all, I got great margins.
Yeah.
I could discount all I want, but I don't. But I don't because I
Yeah.
want to make money and I want to be happy about answering your phone call when you get pissed off at me. You know what I mean? I want to be like, yeah, I can do it. If I have to refund something, if I have to, dig in a little bit deeper, spend more time, assign a new resource. Like I just want to be in a really good position. And I know that it's better for me and it's better for you if I charge you what I'm worth. But man, dude, I've been doing this for 15 years. It took me the first 10 before I really figured that out.
It it was during, was it right after the pandemic? I did a thing and I did it for one of my students because he asked. He's like, hey, I got a bunch of people I'm trying to get in. I gave away a year free to first responders, a year free. We had a bunch hit it up and almost no one stuck with it.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because people don't value.
You don't pay, you don't pay attention.
Right. They don't value. And so you get what you pay for, right? There's always going to be somebody cheaper, somebody like that.
Yeah.
But you get what you pay for. And you
know the
have to be
super glue
comfortable
story?
with that. The what?
The super glue story?
I don't.
I shot a video on this. Nobody watched it because it's probably because the title was stupid, or maybe just because it's not the right audience. But Tom Breeze told me this. They invented super glue, and they had insane margins tacked onto it. Like it cost them nothing to make this stuff. It cost them a penny, and so they were like, "We're going to sell it for 5 pennies a bottle." This was back when shit actually cost pennies. It cost a penny, and they're like, "We're going to sell it for 5 pennies a bottle. 500% markup. It's insane. We're all going to be rich." Clink champagne glasses, high five, pat on the back. Fails miserably. Nobody buys it. And then they bring in this marketing expert who goes, "You're not charging enough. Nobody's going to believe that it actually works because it's like the impenetrable glue." So and they're all pushing back, saying, "Dude, there's no way we can charge more than 500%. That's absolute insanity." They mark it up to like $1.50 a bottle. Flies off the shelves. People's perception of value is so important. You know what's crazy that I think about for Solutions 8? We charge $1,500 plus 10%. Generally speaking, there's some nuances there, but that's what we charge. And it's on the website and it's public and it's no big deal. And I have people tell me all the time, like, "Oh gosh, you're one of the more expensive agencies I've spoken to." All the big agencies. I'm not going to drop their names because I'm not trying to lob grenades. But the big arbitrary agencies, and there's a ton of them, you know, the $100 million valuation agencies, they're charging 30 to 35% of spend. 30 to 35% of spend. We're one of the few agencies that we do the stuff that they do, I think better even. But because our clients don't have access to that level of service, they think we're expensive. And I need to find a way to show them like, no, dude, you have no idea. You think I'm expensive because you just talked to, you know, little Scotty, who's not even graduated high school. He's sitting in his grandma's basement.
Probably went through a course online.
Exactly. He went through Alric Heck. Shout out to Alric. He went through Alric Heck's weekend course and thinks he's a freaking YouTube expert. Yeah, if that kid wants to charge you $4 a month, like, God bless you. Best of luck. But man, just the perception of value. And I don't know, it's funny that we're having this conversation because I'm acting like I'm an expert here because we're shooting a video for, you know, for other people, but I don't know how to change that. I don't know how to improve our perception of value because people still think we're expensive. And here we are doing way more for way less. And it's a difficult thing because you can't compare apples to apples.
Yeah, that is tough. And I could be wrong because I've never really looked, but I'm sure a lot of these big agencies, they probably don't even put their pricing out.
Well, they generally don't. But even if they did, here's the problem. And this, I've thought a lot about this. The reason that we don't have access to that clientele is because all those big agencies do multi-channel marketing. You know, first of all, they do all your, so it's not just Google. They'll do your Facebook, TikTok, programmatic, CTV, whatever. But then they'll also do content, CRO, SEO, and
probably all the creative stuff.
All the creative. Larger companies want to write one check. They want one, and it makes sense. I need you to be accountable for everything. Yeah, fine. I have an opinion as to why that actually doesn't work because there's nobody that can be good at all of that. Like, it's just so impossible. But you can't fight what is structurally necessary, especially with a Fortune 1000 or, I mean, it doesn't even have to be that big. With a massive organization, they need one point of contact, write one check, and we get some of that work. They outsource to us. We have some white label partners that are, you know, much bigger than we are. But even so, it's not that they're charging 35% of spend because they're doing more. They'll just on their Google work, or, you know, they're charging 30 to 35% of spend. And it's a perception thing because you go to their ivory tower office, you sit down at their big ass marble conference room, you eat their $14 croissant.
And that 35% might be a big check.
Yeah.
Depending on how much you're spending.
Well, and they're only taking 6 and 7 figure spends. You know, our minimum spend is 10 grand. Their minimum spend is 100 grand. Yeah. But they also have to jump through all the hoops and do all the things and, you know, shake hands and kiss babies. And I don't want to do any of that. That sounds horrible. Yeah. I don't know why we're talking about Solutions 8 right now. I just got super interested. Dude, I love the sales conversation. Here's what's interesting too. I've been told both internally and externally by a ton of experts, friends, consultants, efficiency people. I was just on the phone with a guy Tuesday, actually, really sharp guy, consults with agencies on efficiency. Everybody says you've got to niche down and cut out lead generation. Go e-commerce and or SaaS only. And I can think, I've got some buddies, Colin, who's one of my former employees, only does e-com. OMG Commerce only does e-com. My buddy Scott, Socialite, only does e-com. And they only do e-commerce because it's easy. Well, that's unfair. It's easier. I can see what you're making. I know how to optimize. I don't need your participation. And so it's really tempting to say, I'm just going to cut out lead gen. They're our hardest clients or the hardest campaigns to make work. And not because they're technically more difficult, but because you need human participation. It's the hardest thing to enforce.
But and it's human participation on the other side that you're not in control of.
You have not only that, but they're the ones striking, you know, it's always weird to me that you're writing me the check and I'm like, hey, Jeremy, did you do the thing you're supposed to do? Because without it, we can't do our job. And then 3 months from now, you're actually going to yell at me, dude. And I've had this happen. I'm sure we all have, to where it's like, why didn't you? And it's like, man, come on. I can screenshot 15 emails to you, bro. Like, you know, at least don't gaslight me. Here's why I don't want to cut out lead gen though. I feel like it makes us better. It's a harder nut to crack, and to just run away from the difficult thing. You know, that's why we're shooting this video. I want people in a lead generation environment to know, like, hey, these are the things that you have to do. You have to follow up, because everybody rolls their eyes at the topic. They're like, no, I know I need to follow up. And I'm like, fine. But are you? But are you doing you're about to spend, you're going to give me tens of thousands of dollars to go plug into this machine, and then you're going to yell at me if it doesn't work. Yep. So can you and I just agree that you need to follow up, you need to send, you know, text messages, you need to email, you need to call. And man, I don't, you know, we've gone as far as talking about doing it for them. Me and John have gone as far as saying like, okay, we'll run the sales team, we'll run the CRM, we'll run the follow up. But at that point, I'm like, I'll just buy your business, like, or I'll just invest in your business
Yeah.
and show you how, so then, that's probably a more of an incubator. But anyway, I love this topic. I think we should do way more of this. I appreciate you bringing it up. And I've monopolized conversation, dude. I'm so sorry. You just got me excited. Last words to you. What, if somebody's watching this, what's the take home message? What do you want them to know?
If you're spending money on advertising and you're not following up with the people, you might as well not be advertising. And
Right.
don't blame it on the advertiser. Don't blame it on the person that's doing it for you. Look at your salespeople. And that's not like me pointing fingers. Like, hey, look at your salespeople. Like I'm in the same boat, right? I own a business that is reliant on following up with leads that come in. And if I'm putting money into an advertising platform and I'm not following up with them, I might as well just be throwing my money out the window, because that's what you're doing. And even worse, I'm purchasing these leads, not following up with them so that my competitors can go take them. So I just bought a lead for my competitor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because they will, if somebody is interested, whether it's going to a gym or a yoga studio, or whether they need a lawyer, they need something, they might fill out that form on your website. If you fail to follow up or you fail to contact them, they're going to go to the next person. But guess what? You might have just generated that interest for them. If you're doing top of the funnel marketing, and you might have generated the interest only for your competitor to go take the sale for free.
What a brilliant point, dude. That's so funny.
You have to follow up.
Yeah. Yeah. I never even, so that's, because we've been focused on the bottom of the funnel for so long. That's never even been a concern of mine. But now that we're going PMAX and everything's going to be top of the funnel.
Yeah.
Like, you're absolutely right. You're going to go build a market. And if your salespeople don't follow up, you're going to build a market for your competitor.
Yeah.
Have you met?
Yeah. So here you go.
That's so funny. Awesome, man. Well, this was a great conversation. I hope we have more of them. I appreciate being on the team. If you're watching this, I'd love your input. I'd also love to know what other topics you want to hear about. We want to bring you value. I crave attention with the fervor of a pathetic child. And that means that I'll do just about anything that's, ethical and or aligned with our proficiency, our prowess, our skill set. I lost the word there, Jeremy, but we did it. Appreciate you being on, brother.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much.
Yep. See you next time, guys.
Take care.
Wait, before you go, I'm constantly looking for amazing people to come join our team. So if you're passionate about Google Ads and you're passionate about customer success, please go to solate.com/apply. And we'd love to see you as a part of the Solutions 8 team. Also, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. It lets the YouTube algorithm know that we actually know what we're doing. And don't forget to subscribe. We shoot a video every single day, and I don't want you to miss out on any of it. Lastly, if you have questions, comments, concerns, confessions, or you just hate my face and my voice, go ahead and hit us up in the comments. We get very little human interaction, and even the heckling is something that I kind of get a kick out of. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being subscribers if you're a subscriber. Don't forget to apply if you're interested in working at Solutions 8. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow.